Week number 9 of the 2025 fantasy football season comes to a close tonight on Monday Night Football. In today's video, we are going to be getting a jump start on week number 10. We'll be breaking down my top 5 defenses to stream for week number 10 of the 2025 fantasy football season. Why do we stream defenses in fantasy football? It's incredibly simple. A lot of your league mates are going to be running out the same defense every single week, whether they have a great matchup or a matchup where the defense might score negative points. They are just going to stick with them. You are going to switch your defense every single week to get your upside weekly to be significantly higher, because in today's video, these are defenses that could score 15 plus fantasy points and be the reason why you win your week. Before we get into things, please make sure that if you are new to the channel that you hit that subscribe button down below. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. We begin with my number 1 defense to stream on the week, the Cleveland Browns at the New York Jumbo Jets in MetLife. The Cleveland Browns defense is currently rostered in 28.6% of leagues on NFL, 20% over on Sleeper, 29.6% on ESPN, and 30% over on Yahoo. If you play on CBS, MFL, any other fantasy football platform, then the rostership percentage might be slightly different, though in some cases, I will note from one platform to another, there might be a drastic difference in rostership percentage. Now, the Cleveland Browns were on bye last week in week number 9, so we have to go back to week number 8 for their last defensive performance. The Browns defense went toe-to-toe with the New England Patriots in Foxborough in week number 8. They lose that game 13-32, but it's not the fault of the defense. They had 6 sacks, 1 INT, 1 fumble recovery, and 30 points allowed. The fact that a defense can get 6 sacks, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, and the team still gets their back blown out, they still get absolutely eviscerated, is a testament to just how awful, how abysmal Dylan Gabriel and this offense is. If they just had a mid-offense, they would have won significantly more games this season. The Jets were also on bye in week number 9, so we got to go back to week number 8 for their last opponent's defensive performance. The Bengals went up against the New York Jets, and based on how the Bengals defense plays week in and week out, you could have already guessed, if you don't remember, that the Bengals defense didn't do diddly squat up against the Jets. They lose that game 38-39. No sacks, no interceptions, no fumble recoveries, just straight up 39 points allowed. The Bengals defense is so atrocious that we just saw them completely choke away a game up against the Chicago Bears that they 100% should have won. Joe Flacco literally put the team on his back. The Unk was carrying them, and somehow, some way, Colston Loveland sheds off 18,000 defenders and scores a big touchdown to win them the game. The Bengals defense is a disaster. So the fact that the Bengals end up getting their backs blown out by the Jets offense shouldn't be a shock to anyone. If there ever was a defense that could shock an ounce of life into Justin Fields and into the Jets offense, it would be the Bengals defense. So the Cleveland Browns, it is a lot different of a story, right? The Cleveland Browns have a dog shit offense and an amazing defense. The Bengals have an amazing offense and a terrible defense. It is the complete opposite. So while I do like that the Jets showed some life, and while I do like that the Jets won that game after the passing of Nick Mangold, rest in peace to him, I do think that the Cleveland Browns are going to pulverize the Jets offense in this spot, and I think the Cleveland Browns are definitely the best defense to stream on the week. Now, the Browns do face the Ravens next week at home in Cleveland. Last time that these two teams played up against each other, the Browns got lit up like a Christmas tree, losing 41-17 with 3 sacks in that game. So even with how good the Browns defense is, I wouldn't touch them with the 10-foot pole up against the Ravens. So they are a 1-week streamer for me, in my opinion. Now we move to the Carolina Panthers going up against the New Orleans Saints. 0.8% roster on NFL for the Panthers defense, 3% on Sleeper, 4.4% on ESPN, and 2% on Yahoo. So if you are not able to get the Cleveland Browns defense, you should be able to get the Carolina Panthers defense. Now the Panthers, week 9 at the Green Bay Packers. What a win. What a win by the Carolina Panthers. They win 16-13 in Lambeau. They had Jordan Love seeing ghosts like his name was Sam Darnold back on the Jets. It was beautiful to watch. The Panthers had 1 sack, 1 INT, 1 fumble recovery, and 13 points allowed. They probably should have had another interception where Jordan, love me tender, love me sweet, threw the ball directly to a defender. I don't remember which player it was, and he just, for some reason, wasn't able to catch it. But when, oh man, was that a beautiful showing from the Panthers defense. The Panthers offense, Bryce Young, he looked lost. He needed a map, but hey, a win is a win. So the Carolina Panthers upset the Packers. The Packers were like minus 1,000 in that game. So that was cool. That was very, very cool to watch. And if you guys have been watching my defenses to stream videos all season long, then you would know that we have been targeting the Saints offense like they used to target players when they were playing defense. The reason why we are going all on a Tet offensive of the New Orleans Saints offense is because it just isn't that good. And whether it's Tyler Shuck, whether it's Spencer Rattler, it's the same shit, different day. This is an offense that you want to pick on. Tyler Shuck looks maybe slightly better than Spencer Rattler, but being slightly better than complete and utter dog shit doesn't really move the needle. The Rams defense, week 9 versus the Saints, they win 34-10, 1 sack, 1 interception, 1 fumble recovery, and 10 points allowed. So the Saints are just an offense that is dreadful to watch. Alvin Kamara looks beyond washed. Chris Olave is very good. Juwan Johnson's pretty good. Rashid Shaheed's pretty good. But ultimately, if Tyler Shuck continues to play how he played last week, there is no reason to believe that the Carolina Panthers will be anything outside of being a great defense this week to have on your roster. I understand that the Panthers aren't the best defense, the most fearsome defense in the NFL like you might believe the Cleveland Browns are. But in fantasy football, streaming defenses, it's all about the matchups, and the Carolina Panthers have an elite matchup this week. The Panthers face the Falcons next week at Atlanta. Last time these two teams played, the Panthers won 30-0 back in week 3 with 2 interceptions, 1 fumble recovery, and a touchdown. And while that was a great game, I just think the Falcons offense has too much upside for me to play a Panthers defense against them that is incredibly inconsistent. Now we move to our third defense to stream, the Chicago Bears versus the New York Football Giants. 51.3% roster on NFL, 27% on Sleeper, 22.8% on ESPN, and 38% over on Yahoo. Before we talk about the Bears defense and the rest of the defenses in today's video, I would like to give you guys a quick word for our friends and our partner over at Underdog. If you're brand new to Underdog and sign up using promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description, you receive a free pick plus a first-time deposit offer of up to $1,000 in bonus funds, as well as if you play $5 in the pick'em, you receive an additional $100 in bonus funds or in bonus entries. How does the pick'em work, you might ask? It is incredibly simple. You make at least 2 picks on the players higher or lower. If those picks hit, you get paid. If you do multiple other picks, then the payout will be higher, but all of the picks need to hit. Make sure you guys do check that out. Promo code Notorious or by clicking on the link in the video description. So back to the Bears. The Bears defense, week 9 at the Cincinnati Bengals. They let Joe Flacco absolutely take them to Pound Town, hit them from the back. How you like that? They still win the game 47-42. They had 3 sacks, 2 INTs, 1 fumble recovery, and 42 points allowed. So while the Bears didn't have the best defensive performance, we did talk about them last week as a streamer, and if you did play them based on the fact that they had 3 sacks, 2 INTs, 1 fumble recovery, I get it wasn't the best game ever, right? It wasn't the Buccaneers from week number 8 where I highly touted the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense, and they went out there and scored, what was that, like 30 fantasy points, 25 plus fantasy points in a lot of your guys' fantasy leagues. The Bears were more of a lower tier option last week. I said they were a break glass in case of emergency, a break glass in case of emergency defense. And, you know, at that price, based on what I was talking about, how I was talking about them, you were happy with the production that they gave. The 49ers defense, week 9 at the New York Football Giants, they win 34-24, 2 sacks, 24 points allowed. Now, I actually do believe in the Giants offense as a whole. I believe in Brian Daboll. I believe in Jackson Dart. But at the end of the day, the wide receiver core that Jackson Dart has just sells a million different times in the game, right? They could be wide open. They're There's drops. There are just bad issues with the offense as a whole that aren't the fault of Jackson Dart. So a defense like the Chicago Bears that at times this season have looked elite. I'm not saying that the Chicago Bears defense is elite because Joe Flacco just tore them to shreds like he was the Wolverine, right? Just cutting them up, right? He was taking them out back. But there's a big difference between, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Chase Brown compared to Tyrone Tracy, Jackson Dart. You know what? I don't want to shit on Jackson Dart because I still like Jackson Dart. You get what I mean, right? Tyrone Tracy, Wan'Dale Robinson, Darius Slayton, right? All these guys that are on the Giants, it is just a much different breed of an offense compared to Joe Flacco and the Cincinnati Bengals. So while I don't necessarily think we should be picking on the Giants offense like we do with the Saints, like we do with the Jets, like we do with the Cleveland Browns, ultimately, I do think that the Chicago Bears defense, if they show up, right? If they show up like they did earlier on the season and in certain spots so far this season, then I believe that the Bears have the upside to be the number one defense on the week. The Bears play the Vikings next week in Minnesota. Last time these two teams played back in week 1, Chicago lost 24-27. They had 1 interception with 3 sacks and 1 touchdown. I think they are playable, but I'm not going to pretend like I'm going to be banging the drum next week and telling all you guys that you need to start the Bears defense. Now we move to the Jacksonville Jaguars at the Houston Texans, 27.2% rostered on NFL, 58% on Sleeper, 61.3% on ESPN, and 57% on Yahoo. Based on the fact that they didn't perform as well up against the Raiders as I thought they would, I think by the time you actually get to tomorrow, on Tuesday, when you're putting in your waiver bids to get these defenses, or if you're picking them up on Wednesday morning after the waivers already went through, then the Jacksonville Jaguars might be more widely available because Geno Smith, in the spirit of Halloween, came alive like his name was Frankenstein. Now, the Jaguars do win in an overtime thriller. Shout out to Mike Jack. They win that game. The Jaguars 30-29 in Viva Las Vegas. 2 sacks, 1 INT, 29 points allowed. Brock Bowers was unlimited in that game like his name was Russell Wilson. That dude came back and looked like the Geno Smith and Brock Bowers connection that we've been waiting for. Brock Bowers looked incredible. Like Sydney Sweeney in that dress. It was unbelievable how Brock Bowers completely shifted this offense. We were talking about how Geno Smith looked blind. We were talking about how Geno Smith was useless. How Geno Smith could not read green eggs and ham, red fish, blue fish. He couldn't read the fucking Dr. Seuss books. And then up against the Jaguars, the guy is dissecting the defense. So maybe Brock Bowers is the cog that keeps this offense chugging. The Jacksonville Jaguars defense has been on a downward slide, right? We talked about that last week when I said to stream the Jaguars defense. They've been slipping. They've been sliding. They were really good to start off the season, and recently they've kind of taken a back seat, but I do think up against the Houston Texans that more than likely won't be with CJ Stroud due to the concussion that it would appear he had, at least from watching the game, the way he got hit. Now, it is important to understand that concussions in the NFL, there's not just a clear answer to it, right? When someone gets hurt and, they sprain some part of their body, they tweak their ACL, something like that, right? There is a certain amount of weeks that a player is out normally, right? 4 to 6 weeks for this, X amount of weeks for this. With a concussion, CJ Stroud might be good to go in this game. He might not be good to go for multiple other weeks. It is very, very tough to actually break this down. Now, I'm as much of a doctor as Johnny Sins. Based on that hit, though, as, an outsider looking in, I'm not going to pretend like I have that doctorate in concussions, okay? But I do definitely think that didn't look good, and he probably will be out, thus elevating Toys R Us mascot Davis Money Mills to be the starting quarterback of the team. The Broncos defense, week 9 at Houston, they win 18-15, 4 sacks, 15 points allowed. And again, this is just an offensive line that is easily exploitable. I don't know if we are going to get the Saxonville Jaguars from the past this week, but I do think that the Jaguars are going to get a whole lot of pressure on Davis Mills. And if it does become CJ Stroud, I would still be willing to stream them here, but I might bump them down to my 5th defense to stream. The Broncos, again, against them, they win 18-15, 4 sacks, 15 points allowed. The Jaguars face the Chargers next week, and even if the Jaguars were to get back to the first 4 weeks of the season version of this defense, I wouldn't trust them in any way. Final defense to stream, we got the New York Jumbo Jets going up against the Cleveland Browns. 1.7% roster on NFL, 2% on Sleeper, 9% on ESPN, and 8% over on Yahoo. The Jets were also on bye last week, so we have to go back to week 8 for their last defensive performance. The Jets defense, week 8 at Cincinnati, they win 39-38, 1 sack, 38 points allowed in that game. But again, that was up against Joe Flacco and the Cincinnati Bengals. The Cincinnati Bengals, ever since Joe Flacco has taken over, have been red hot, steaming hot, like that fajita plate that comes out at Chili's or at Jose Tejas, okay? So the Jets getting cream pied by the Cincinnati Bengals offense shouldn't be surprising at all. The Patriots defense, week 8 versus the Cleveland Browns. They win 32-13, 1 sack, 2 INTs, 1 safety, 13 points allowed. Dylan Gabriel is not the answer. I know Joe Flacco wasn't the answer in Cleveland. It is very abundantly clear that Dylan Gabriel isn't the answer. We are not really seeing any flashes of potential greatness. Look, I get sometimes these quarterbacks, they start their career off slow, like Cam Ward. But you've seen some Cam Ward plays this season that's like, holy shit, that's why they drafted him number 1 overall. That's why Cam Ward is going to be the franchise quarterback potentially of the Tennessee Titans. When you watch Dylan Gabriel play, all I see is ass. He's not good. So my question is, when are they going to pull the plug and put Shadur, Perfect Time, and Sanders in there? I'm not acting like Shadur's the answer either, but we got to see something different. The Jets defense has been very underwhelming this season. A lot of people were saying that Aaron Glenn was going to get these guys into shape. They were going to be a much better defense than under Robert Saleh, Mr. Xerxes from 300 last season. Obviously, that hasn't worked well, but they have some of the pieces. So with Dylan Gabriel being nothing short of ass, I do think the Jets defense could be a defense that actually goes off this week. They play the Patriots next week in Foxborough. I would not risk playing them in that spot. So overall, to put a bow on things here, the Cleveland Browns at the New York Jets are, in my opinion, the best defense to stream on the week. Number 2, the Panthers and the Saints. The Panthers at the Saints, or the Panthers versus the Saints, because the game is at home in Carolina. They're a nice second best, right? They're in the same tier or a slight tier break between the Browns and the Panthers. Then there's definitely a tier break after the Panthers to get to the Bears. Then, the Bears, the Jags, they're in the same range. And then there's a bit of a tier break till you get to the Jets. Not because I think that the Cleveland Browns offense is going to be ferocious against the Jets. It's just the Jets are just a very difficult team to truly trust. So thank you guys all so much for watching. If you didn't enjoy today's video, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button down below. Like it owes you some money. Leave a like on today's video. It would help me out a ton. If you want to follow me on Twitter or X, please do so at NotoriousFantasy. Check out one of the videos on your screen if you haven't seen them already. Love you guys all so much. Hope you have a great one. As always, good boy.